The low-end skylift had a stunning view of all the fjords and lakes, let alone the Brickstall Glacier. Ash thought of this as she journeyed up it, looking darkly onwards. The messenger who'd met her off the flight had informed her brusquely that Esther Crook was at the top of the skylift, eating dinner and recovering from a busy night of work. Ash had felt her stomach sink. A con artist who did honest labour didn't seem much like an honest person to her. It felt like a trick of the light. She groaned at the thought as the skylift ended its long journey. Sticking her hands into her pockets, she walked out and up to the small cafe. There was a waitress serving and 3 couples sitting. Ash read them quickly. 2 honeymooning couples, at least that's what she assumed from the way they couldn't keep their hands off each other, and a tourist. An older woman was looking out of the window. Next to her, a younger woman with dark rings under her eyes was tucking into a meal and ignoring the room. "Pardon," Ash said, stopping the waitress. "Have you seen Miss Crook?" The waitress nodded and pointed towards the window. "She's there." Ash followed her gaze to where the 2 women were sitting. There was a table between them. Ash thanked the waitress and sat down, ignoring the young woman and looking at the older one. The woman eyed her and returned to her book, apparently snubbing her company. Ash coughed into her hand. "Well, this is a nice time to prove myself to you, Mrs. Crook. I've been doing some cold reading. The 2 couples over there are from the cruise ship. The younger couples, who can't keep their hands off each other, are newlyweds, possibly on honeymoon. The older couple has probably been contentedly married for many years, judging by the design of their wedding rings, on the cruise for an anniversary." She smiled and looked at the old woman, who was looking at her with disdain. She knew she'd have to brush up her technique after all. "Shall I do you, Mrs. Oh, congratulations. I didn't know you were married. Crook?" The older woman merely shook her head at the apparently unwanted and unwarranted conversation before standing up quickly and rushing out, muttering as she went. Ash watched her go, surprised by her agility. Perhaps she wasn't supposed to approach her. She'd explained that she'd never got the instructions. "Well, you need to improve your cold reading," said the young woman, who had been sitting next to her. She had a lilt of an accent, which bordered between French and English. "You what?" "The correct term is pardon," corrected the woman, smirking as she continued to cut her meat before shoving a liberally sized piece into her mouth. She chewed and swallowed, picking up her water and taking a sip before continuing. "And you heard? You're not good at cold reading." "I don't know what you're talking about." Ash stood as the girl stopped drinking and returned to her meal. She'd barely gotten into the country and she'd already been made. There was a gentle clatter of knife and fork as the girl looked up at Ash through hooded green eyes and flashed a smirk. "You were right about one of the young couples. The others were all wrong. The couple you asked about, Mr. and Mrs. Nielsen, are having a baby. That's why they can't keep their hands off each other. They're making up for future lost time. The cruising couple are having an affair, but their partners are on board, and this is the first time they've had the opportunity to be truly alone. I would bet my poker winnings that the one man has vertigo and the other lady a bad head. Possibly both sides are playing each other and having affairs, thinking the other party doesn't know. Mrs. Hanson, who you scared off, is very hard of hearing and struggles most ferociously with it. She thought you were going to jump her and rob her." Ash stared at her as the cruise couple began to pass. "How's your husband's vertigo?" the young woman said to the woman she'd just accused of having an affair in a friendly tone of voice. "Doing very well, thank you, Miss Esther Crook."